You are now tuned into the Anxious Ambition podcast, where you'll be hearing raw and unfiltered conversations with those who struggle with mental illness but refuse to let that get in the way of them achieving their dreams. Our hope is that by hearing their stories, you are inspired to do more. Here are their stories.
Anxious Ambition.
All right, everybody, welcome back to another episode of the Anxious Ambition podcast. This is going to be the first episode of season 2. We're excited to be back. Today's guest is the host of the Trey Speaks podcast. He's the founder of the Active Minds chapter at University of Dubuque, and he's currently pursuing his master's to become a therapist. Welcome to the show, Trey Moss.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
Hey, I'm happy to have you on. You want to tell everyone a little bit about you?
Yeah. So I guess a little bit about me. I am 24 years old. As Justin mentioned, I'm currently in grad school, my master's social work program at St. Ambrose University. After that, I plan on going in private practice to be a licensed mental health therapist. And I guess what kind of led me to that was, being in therapy.
Mm-hmm.
And, my therapist kind of shining that light on me and saying, hey, I think you can do this work. And I've always had a passion of loving people. And growing up, my little sister, she would want to be a therapist, a psychologist, and a police officer. And we were trying to figure out, how the hell are you going to do all those jobs?
Right.
And she inspired me to, also be where I am today. And once she passed away, my senior year of high school, it definitely gave me, it was okay, Trey, you're going to be helping people.
Mm-hmm.
And I played basketball and baseball growing up. So I enjoyed doing those things when I was a kid. And then unfortunately I stopped probably in my senior year of high school. Very outgoing person, love welcoming and including everyone and everything. It's who I am. Always been that way.
Sure.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. So getting into therapy, obviously, you did therapy yourself, I'm assuming?
Yeah. I go once a week. I was going every other week. And then sometimes it was once a month. But no one knows this, but I've probably been through 4 or 5 therapists. And I thought it was so, after my first one, I was I'm not going to try again. I'm not. But someone told me it's look for a therapist that you want to see in a friend. And I was
100%.
just okay, that makes sense. And so I went through 4 or 5 therapists before I finally found the one. And once I found the one, it's our personalities, our vibes, we just, clash, and it's amazing.
Oh, absolutely. I got lucky with mine. It was the first try, but
Oh, really?
you hear that all the time. Well, to be honest though, she was the officiant at our wedding. So we already had a connection, and it was but like you said, you hear that all the time. It's oh no, I just don't connect with them. It's you have to keep, if you're really serious about therapy, you got to keep trying. So you find it's a very intense relationship that if you don't trust the person or vibe with them, it's just kind of, I don't know, useless. But
yeah.
So what got, what obviously, what happened? So when did you start going to therapy after your sister passed away?
Yeah. After my sister passed away, my senior year of high school, I completely, I just felt numb. I just didn't know how to handle, my emotions, or just grieving. And I was one that always felt I had to be strong for my family, because, I've never been, the one to be vulnerable or show my emotions or feelings to my family members. Part of because I wasn't really allowed to. And when I did, I was being invalidated. I wasn't getting, the validation from my parents or my siblings that I needed. And so that's something I'm still working on in therapy. It's just not being validated growing up. But I think I made some comments about just self-harm to my best friend, and that, made him very scared. And so he told his mom, and then his mom told my mom, and then that's when my mom found out. And that's when she signed me up for therapy. And I was just okay, I've always been a very open person, always want to try out new things. And at the time I didn't know there's, a stigma between, seeking, help from a professional. And so I think that's also kind of, why I still started therapy. It's because I didn't know about the stigma at the time. And started therapy. She was a good therapist, but we just again, like we didn't connect. We didn't like really have many things in common. Although she gave me some very good coping skills and some like recommendations, like say for example, like lavender.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I didn't know about lavender like at the time. And she's just like, hey, try this out. This will help just kind of keep you calm and like help you sleep at night. And so, that's something that like has stuck with me and like, I still use. But
More general stuff though, nothing like personal. It was just kind of like, I don't say just general shit, but basically, like stuff that could work for everybody, but not like for you, specifically.
Yeah. It was just like, all right, I'm gonna throw out all these recommendations and things you can do rather than, us talking and, me starting to like unpack things that like I've been through and like, obviously the grief of my sister.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that I just stopped that. And then once I moved away to college, I started seeking services on campus at UD
Mm-hmm.
and built a really great relationship with the therapist there. And then unfortunately, she left my junior year. And then so it was like, okay, well, damn, like, what am I going to do now? Like, she's gone, she's not in Iowa anymore. So my English professor, her daughter is a therapist. And so we got connected. And I knew from that first day, like, we were going to be great together. Like,
that's awesome.
And so I was doing that like once or twice a month. And I really should have started off going weekly, but
Sure.
still kind of scared, honestly.
Mm-hmm. So before your sister passed away, did you have any like mental health, issues or anything like before that? And this kind of, you see a lot of the time, like the trauma, these big traumatic events really just, either, awaken like the depression, the anxiety, whatever it is, seems to be like a launching point for a lot of people. It's like, oh shit, like I do have some things to work through.
Yeah. So, I did not know what mental health was until I got to
Rightfully
college.
so. Yeah. Right. Right. Like everybody.
And it's sad. Like,
Mm-hmm.
I really think that like mental health should be taught like in schools. And honestly, like I've been seeing a little bit lately about teachers, in middle school and high school are kind of mentioning, mental health. Like I just hear
Mm-hmm.
from, friends and like their brothers and sisters are like in school and they were telling them like, oh, hey, I learned this today. And they would tell me, and I was just like, that's awesome. Like I'm, really glad to hear that. But I guess looking back, I can definitely see that I did deal with, definitely depression. That always have been like my biggest battle was
Mm-hmm.
depression. And I've always like had experienced, numerous of times like just sadness. And I was very uncomfortable. Like I had lack of energy with doing anything. And it was kind of part of the reason why I fell off of baseball, even going into high school, was because of my depression.
Mm-hmm.
And I've always felt like an outsider. Um, by that, like I hated like everything about me, like all my physical features, like even like my skin being black. Like
Mm-hmm.
it was something like it was a battle. And majority of the like kids at my school, like they were white.
You're right. Did
And
you grow up in Iowa?
no, so I grew up
Okay.
in Rockville, Illinois.
Okay. Yeah.
And
Yeah.
honestly, yeah, so I grew up in Rockville, Illinois. I went to a pretty big school, but
Mm-hmm.
there was obviously like there was more white than there was black.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, it was a battle. And like I've always tried, like I wanted to fit in. And I always felt like, an outsider. Like I didn't belong in these certain friend groups, or I wasn't this, I guess, popular kid as, some other kids were. And so it definitely like affected, I mean, it still affects me a little bit today. Like just thinking back, like, damn, like no one wanted me. Like I didn't feel wanted or loved or cared for, even just in my household, just
Mm-hmm.
because of not being able to have a space to talk about things that I was going through. And I don't know, it's just crazy. Like even in therapy, like now I'm just like, damn, like my parents really caused like a lot of childhood trauma. And not to throw hate on them, like, they didn't mean it. Like
They
they're,
didn't know. Right. They didn't know.
they didn't know. And I honestly, like, it took me some time to like be able to forgive them, like internally.
Mm-hmm.
And And I was just like, I can't, continue to put this hate on them because, they're, they didn't know. Like they were
Mm-hmm.
parents, they're individuals. They probably were like they didn't, be able to open up and be vulnerable like when they were a child.
Mm-hmm.
So
Mm-hmm.
it, yeah, it's pretty, it's pretty crazy. Like just and really interesting just to see how, not necessarily like immature my parents were, but that they did the best that they could.
Right. Is
And I
it
think,
is it fair to say, like, I don't know if I'm not crossing any lines, but like in Black culture, right? I think it's even more taboo, right? Like
oh,
mental health and everything. Is that fair to say?
yeah, like, dude, like growing up in a Black household, you're taught to be strong. And also just being a Black man,
Right.
like you're taught to be strong, taught to get over it, throw it under the rug, everything will be fine tomorrow. Dude, what else did I hear? I heard a lot of shit that like
Yeah.
like that still kind of plays around like in my head, like even when I'm going through situations, just like, all right, get over it.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, no, let's talk about it. Let's process like what you're feeling, like what you're going through. And I think growing up with two older brothers definitely like made it even worse. And I was raised in a single parent home with my mother.
Mm-hmm.
And so obviously like there's a stigma like, there too with mom, there are like these high expectations and standards for, moms to raise their boys to be men and to, toughen them up, make them
Mm-hmm.
strong. And so that's also like that was a barrier too, right there. Like they was just harmful just hearing like get over it, tough, like everything will be
Yeah.
fine tomorrow, or like just go pray about it. Like I would get that too. And it's just like, okay, like I get it, like I'll pray, but
Right.
like I need to unpack.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. You can pray all you want and nothing against all that, but eh, you need someone to talk back,
Yeah,
you
exactly.
know?
Or like even someone to just listen.
True.
But
True.
yeah, dude, and growing up in a Black household, it is tough. And being around like just my white friends and like their families, like just seeing how open and just willing to listen to their kids, it made me feel like my parents should be doing that.
Mm-hmm.
And so I would literally like go to my friend's house just for that, because like the parents would ask me like how my day was, or like how's school going, or like how my sports are going.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's just like I was more willing to be around them and their place, even though they were my family, but they felt like family, because they checked in.
Mm-hmm.
And like I said earlier, like I'm like, I don't want to blame my parents. But sometimes I'm just like, damn.
I get it. I mean, like, and again, I don't want to blame my parents, but like, my parents have come around to everything and understand more now, but because of like talking about it and like you talking about it, but like, it was like, well, you have nothing to be stressed about. It's like, well,
Mm,
it's not stress, or like, or you nothing to be sad about, or like everything's so good and this and that. And it's like, I mean, you don't know what you don't know, and
right.
like they didn't grow up people talking about depression, and they probably just thought depression is sadness and a little bit about suicide. And even
Mhm.
that, everyone was like, suicide was always like the most selfish thing in the world. And it was just,
Oh yeah.
obviously got different views on that today, but um, you mentioned self-harm. Do you want to talk about that a little bit more? Like, when did that happen? When did it start? I mean,
Yeah. So actually, I just passed the anniversary back in October. It I tried self-harming freshman year of college
okay,
in October. So my sister passed away September 28th.
okay,
And I would say that fall of October 2015, yeah, no, 2016. It was definitely challenging, especially being away from home
mm,
and not really knowing anyone at college. Freshman year in college, I don't know anyone. Me and
mm-hmm,
my roommate and I, like, we barely talked. He was super quiet. I mean, I'm super quiet too, but I was able to, kind of make friends at that time too.
Hmm.
But no one, no one like really knew about it. Besides like my best friend, as I mentioned.
Hmm.
And it was just really, I just wanted everything to just stop, like everything just end. Like I didn't know, like I was feeling things and I didn't know what, really what I was feeling.
Hmm.
And I just knew I wanted all the thoughts and, I was feeling like it was so kind of going back like to, to my sister.
Hmm.
When she was in a room with me, and I was in a room with her, she was on her she was taking a breathing treatment, and I tried so hard to keep the mask on her face, and she was like, fighting me like just for air and like just everything. And unfortunately she just kind of like collapsed, and I like immediately like I just froze.
Hmm.
And I just remember hearing, the firefighters and paramedics or whatever, telling me to like let her go, like let go. And sometimes like and like at that time and still, here and there I hear those like the words that she said, like, I need to go to the doctor like, now. And so I went through years of just blaming myself for my
Yeah.
sister passing away because I couldn't keep the mask on her face. And so I and going back to, my attempt, I told my family, like, I'm sorry that this happened. Like, I'm sorry that I did this. It's all my fault. I'm the reason why she's not here. And so I just thought everyone hated me
Mhm.
and like wanted nothing else to do with me. And so I thought just honestly dying was meant for me. Like, I don't know. I just thought it was meant for
No,
me.
I,
Like
I don't want to say I get it, but I kind of do. I mean, like, yeah, I don't want to put myself in your shoes, but I can understand why, you didn't know what to do, and it wasn't your responsibility to do it. But damn, and first of all, I'm just sorry for your loss, firstly, and thank you for sharing that. I mean, that's obviously got to be hard to do. But just to give a little bit more perspective on everything, I mean, so obviously you're at school. I don't want to be there anymore. What did I mean, walk me, I mean, did you try to self-harm and it just didn't happen, or did you stop? I mean,
yeah. So I I didn't really, well, I guess I had a plan, but I
mm-hmm,
didn't have a plan. It, I wrote letters out to, some close friends and to some family members.
mm-hmm,
And, I came up with a way how they would receive it. And, I just kind of shot them a message like, hey, what's your address? Like, I'm going to mail something to you. And I said, like, I literally use these words. I'm like, it's a gift. Like, I thought of you and I just want you to have this. And like, part of me is just like now, like just thinking now, like, damn, like I would have put through a lot. And,
mm-hmm.
I just didn't really know how to call for help.
Right.
I didn't. And because I didn't want to, be a burden to anyone. But basically, I, was wanting to send out letters. And then I knew overdosing was probably going to be the easiest thing for me to do.
Mm-hmm.
And I was on medication at the time, like my antidepressants, um, and like some pain meds. And I had it all. I remember just opening the pill bottles and poured them all out. And I was just like, this is it. And then I got a phone call, like just randomly, just out of nowhere from a friend that like I did not talk to until like since graduating high school.
Oh.
And just literally out of nowhere just called me and was just like, hey, like I just wanted to call and like check in. Like I know we haven't talked in a while. And I literally like in that moment I broke down and I told him everything. I'm like, dude, you have no idea. Like you literally
Wow.
like you just saved my life. Like
Fuck.
I was about to end everything. Like if you would have never called, like I would probably be laying on my floor right now. And that's when he drove up. We hung out for like the weekend and he was just like, if you want to go home, we can like you can go home. Like we can pack your shit. Like, let's
Mm-hmm.
go.
Right.
And I was just like, dude, I would love to go home, but I'm like, I feel like I'm here for a reason. Like, I feel like I am in college for a reason. And I was just like, I can't go home. Like, everyone's gonna be mad at me. Like, I dropped out of school already. Like, I'm only what, a month and a half in.
Mm.
And I was like, I can't do it. Like, I have to stay here. I'm glad I stayed.
Hell yeah. Hell yeah.
And I don't know. I think about it. I'm just like, dude, like, what made you like call me? Like,
Right.
I don't like, I don't know. And like, I'm a firm believer. And like, I don't know if that was just God, like, hey, you're not going out like that.
No, because he's got a
And
plan.
yeah. And forever grateful for that dude. And
Mm-hmm.
I'd asked him if I, could, kind of share that too. But then he was just like cool with it. He was like, yeah, I just don't want my name.
Fair
I was
enough.
like,
Fair
you're
enough.
cool. I was like, but dude, I was like, you have no idea like how powerful that is. And I don't know. I'm grateful for him.
Well, I mean, first of all, thanks for sharing that. I mean, that's proud of you for doing that. I mean, I'm glad obviously glad you're still here, everything you're doing. But like what you were saying, it resonates, like if you don't know what's going on, I don't want to say like I understand why people do it, but I kind of do because like if you don't have, I don't want to say I got to that point, but I've had those thoughts and like the super negative, and it's like you're in this deep pit, but like in the back of my head, at the time I knew what it was, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I had support and I can tell people what was going on. But like I think of all these, high school kids and things that just they have no idea what's going on. They just think, hey, like, their mind, I mean, the mind's powerful in depression. And like
Yeah.
if, I just get it. You know what I mean? I think
Yeah.
people need to understand that, um, people say like, oh, they should have asked for help and they should have done that. Sometimes you just don't know. You don't know
Yeah.
what's going on.
Right.
And obviously moments like that happen where the universe, God, whatever, got in your friend's ear to call you. And
Mm-hmm.
I mean, what you learn from that, I mean, you're going to help so many people because of it. And you're already doing that. So
Mm-hmm.
yeah, yeah, I mean, it's hard to talk about. People don't like talking about suicide, but the thing is, the more people that talk about it, like I hope, I don't want to say I hope someone, but if someone is listening that's struggling, like it, it's depression. You know what I mean? Like there's more to it. Like if you get help, if you take the steps, or if you're unable to, help yourself, call a friend, someone you can trust, and
Mm-hmm.
maybe that's not your parents,
Mm-hmm.
maybe
Right.
it's not, maybe it's a counselor, a friend, somebody. But there's definitely a way out. And it doesn't have to be a permanent thing.
Right. Exactly. And I feel like, it also are like our friend groups, like our behavior, like around them, like we may be putting off like, all right, I have this situation going on. I'm just gonna get over it.
Mm-hmm.
Like I don't need to, talk about it. Like I'll be fine. I'll be all right. And so like, you meanwhile, like you're like, damn, like this person doesn't want to hear about like my shit that I'm going through. So like I need to get over it. And then you're getting over it. It's like, all right, I want to be done with life. Like
Mm-hmm.
I'm gonna take this route. But if if I was able to just kind of provide a space, not only like for myself, but like for you, and would have been like, all right, bro, like listen, I'm going through this right now. And then you can go in like, damn, bro, like, I feel that, or I understand, or I may not understand,
Mm-hmm.
but I'm going through this. And like I don't know, like that's just how people like how you can form that, relationship, and you both like validating each other, you know what I mean?
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I guess that's the beauty now, like, with everyone, not everyone, but people being so open about, you know, what they're dealing with. And like, even just telling our stories, it's those one, two, three people that hear it that like,
Mhm.
wow, like I'm going through the same thing. Like this is depression or this is anxiety. Like you said, I mean, when I was in high school, I don't know what the fuck was going on. Looking back
Mhm.
now, I get it.
Yeah,
You know, I,
absolutely.
I wasn't always that shy or nervous. It wasn't, you have all these like buzzwords,
Mhm.
sad and, you shouldn't be sad for 4 years or whatever. You know what I mean? Like
Mhm.
it. So that's exactly why I do this podcast, why you do yours.
Yeah.
You want to talk more about your podcast at all?
Yeah. So I am actually it's actually gonna be like a year now.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, like a year now since I, started doing it. I haven't like been like very active on my podcast, but I do have some really uh, just kind of share my story,
Mm-hmm.
personal, and then also like the tragedy of the loss of my sister, and then just get into grad school. Like I knew, I think up in my junior year of college, that's when I knew I had a voice, and I knew like people enjoyed, hearing and seeing the things like I had talked about, when I started to just kind of advocate for mental health. I was just like, all right, I had this group of people. I mean, majority of the people at my school, not to sound cocky or anything, or like this popular person, but like I knew I had a lot of people like listening like to
Mm-hmm.
me, like, and I'm like, all right, I'm not only gonna provide and post this stuff for them, but also for myself, because
Absolutely.
like I said, like I didn't learn about mental health until I got to college. So obviously, like other college students aren't learning about mental health until they got to college,
Yeah.
since they
Or,
started college and stuff.
mm-hmm.
But I think with my podcast, I was like, I want to share my story. I want people to know like who I am, who I was, the shit that happened to me, because I never, like, you never know, like someone could have went through something so similar, and you never know like who you're gonna help, who this story is gonna come across. Like someone from freaking Canada could come across your like your
Yep.
podcast and like really needed it, and like
Mm-hmm.
so I'm like, like I have a voice and I have one hell of a story that like will inspire others, and so I think that's what kind of pushes me to continue doing the stuff that I do. And I mean, also it's like it's my career.
Yeah. Right. 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 Right.
And so it's like, I don't know, like I just enjoy just putting some good shit out there for the people.
Absolutely. And like you said, it's like this is therapeutic for me and you. I'm
Mm.
sure. Like even
Oh, yeah.
like I was actually just like right before we got on, I was watching something that was talking about like imposter syndrome. Like basically like validating. You're validating yourself. Like what makes us experts? I don't even want to call myself an expert, but you know what I mean.
Yeah.
Who gives a shit what we have to say, right? But
Right.
then literally what he says is like, if you let's say you're in the water and someone's drowning and you've got some information, or like basically what he's saying is if you don't even try to help them, even if you have a little bit of something that could help them, even if maybe you're not the strongest person to throw like a life vest, or you have some information for them, if you just keep your mouth shut, you may have been able to save their life.
Yeah.
um
Yeah.
like just because you don't think you're an expert or it doesn't even have to be, it's just talking about your story because people are going to resonate with you,
Mhm.
or they're their family member or something like that. And I think I say this all the time. I think the most important part about mental health and the journey to healing, or at least getting to a point where you can, start dealing with it a little better, is talking about it,
Yeah.
being open about it. It's hard, but once you start talking about it, I feel better and better about mine.
Yeah.
I'm sure you do as well.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And like I was always a person that like, I really didn't want advice or like feedback. Like I really just wanted someone to listen. And then I think over time I'm like, that's what people just want. Like they just want someone to listen to them. Like, they don't want advice. They don't want your feedback. I mean, like if they did, like they'll ask for it. But
Mm-hmm.
they just want you to listen. And so that's why I always, try to make sure. And my friends like sometimes might disagree with me because like when they're talking to me, like I'll be on my phone. But I'm like, if it's serious, like just let me know. Like then I'll be there. I'll be,
Right.
listening to you. But people at the end of the day, like people want you to listen. They don't
Mm-hmm.
want advice. And I feel like some people they get caught up.
Yeah.
They're like, damn, like I really don't know what to say. So then so they avoid the conversation.
Mm-hmm.
But it's just like, hey, all you need to do is listen. Like if that
Absolutely.
person wants you to, kind of give them some advice, they'll, ask for it. Or and honestly, like, just being real with them, like, hey, like I don't understand like what you're going through, but I'm listening. and like I'm here. I
Mhm.
can't, give you the right tools. I can try my best, but like whatever you need, like I'm by your side.
Absolutely.
Like, and so it kind of like I've used to be that person too, where I'm like, dude, like I don't know what I can do, or like I'll often avoid like conversations, and I'm just like, Trey, like you just gotta listen and
Mhm.
validate them and appreciate
Exactly.
them for sharing like stuff that they went through or that they're currently going through.
And the validation is, I think, is a huge part of it, because even when you describe symptoms and things like that, like it makes you sound, I want to say crazy. It's not the right word, but it's like,
Mm,
like what you describe what you're going through. And they were saying, oh shit, like let's get you to the hospital, like right now. And it's like, like I'm okay, but like uh, this is all real. And like
mm,
this is the symptoms of what I'm going through. And
yeah,
like you said, the whole listen thing. I mean, even with like my wife, and I try to do it with relationships now, because I was always a big, I think it's a man, no, being a man thing is you want to fix everything, right?
yeah,
And sometimes it's like, if a friend or something, or like, hey, they just want to talk, but hey, before we do this, like, do you want me to just listen? Do you want me to try to fix this? Or like,
mm,
and I think that, it's a mature thing to do. If
yeah,
someone, if you can't help them, whatever it is, like you don't have the knowledge for it, but like you said, some people just want you to listen.
yeah,
And if you just try to give them advice, they're probably not going to want to keep talking to you again.
mm,
Like
mm,
just listen, man. Like you said,
yeah,
or like you said, sometimes they don't even want you to really listen per se. They just want to talk, and they
yeah,
just want you
for
to be
sure.
there.
Right,
Right.
right, yeah,
Like you
absolutely.
said, like you could chill there on your phone, like you said, or like maybe it's, you can zone out a little. And it's like maybe sometimes the shit can be hard hitting, and it's like,
Yeah,
I'm sure.
yeah,
Talking back about college, people like learning about college, mental health in college, active minds, right? Let's talk about that. So
yeah.
freshman year, all that happens. Walk me
Mm.
through, like, how do you get from being suicidal to, starting a chapter of active minds? And can you tell everyone else what active minds is?
Yeah. So so real quick, so Active Minds, it's a nonprofit organization that is on, they have over 500 chapters on
Wow.
college campuses around the world. And so it's founded by Allison, her younger, I can't think if it's her younger brother or older brother who committed suicide.
Okay.
Or I shouldn't say committed suicide, who died by a suicide. And that's when she started to start her journey with like just advocating about mental health. And
Mm-hmm.
so kind of her forming this organization for mental health in college students, and also like in high schools they do have some chapters in high schools as well. But I found out about Active Minds through one of the faculty advisors for Active Minds at UD currently, and another lady at who was at UD. I went to the president about starting some sort of like mental health support group like on campus, because we didn't have that. Like all we had was the counseling center. And
Is this soon
they
after, like, is this sophomore year, junior year? Just kind
this
of
is oh this
the
is
perspective.
junior year.
Okay. So
Yeah,
sophomore year, you kind of I'm assuming you got yourself kind of a little more out of yours,
yeah.
got yourself better. Got it.
Yeah. And then moving into junior year, I was kind of, set, like I had my foundation of, all right, I'm going to go do this. I'm going to go to grad school, to be a therapist. And I was just like, all right, where do I start with advocating for mental health? Because I was like Googling, like, how can one be, a
Mm-hmm.
mental health advocate?
Sure.
And so I'm like, all right, I want to start a group on campus. And I went to the president of UD and I'm like, hey, like, I had this idea, like, I want to do this. And then that's when he got me in contact with the advisors now. And they're like, hey, like, we've been planning this for years. We just didn't
Wow.
know what students, would be interested, who could lead this group. This is Active Minds. And so I'm like, reading about Active Minds and stuff. And I'm like, all right, I'm gonna set this shit up. Like
Hell yeah.
we're gonna do the damn thing.
Hell yeah.
And so I spent fall of 2019 planning, and I started recruiting people spring of 2020, like that December of fall, and then like January of 2020. I'm like, hey guys, like this is what I want to do. So I'm like recruiting like a bunch of the residence assistants and just some close friends in general. I'm like, hey, like this is my vision. Like well, I got this vision from, well, I learned about active minds from them.
Sure.
I want to bring this to campus, start spreading mental health awareness and, making sure people feel safe and, accepted here, like just on campus in general. And it was tough, honestly, but I, because I was just like, not people aren't going to take this serious. Like no one's going to
Sure.
want this. But then I remember getting numerous of messages and like texts are like, I think this is going to be awesome. Like, I want to be a part. And I think like from the beginning, I've had like maybe like 20, 30 people like
Wow.
interested in like just being a part of Active Minds. And then unfortunately COVID,
Oh,
we were
damn.
planning to get things started and, have our first event, like kind of like a meet and greet in March or April actually. But then everything shut down in March. And so I'm like, well, shit, like, what, like, what the hell can I do?
Right.
Like, what can
Right.
we do? And so I was always advocating on like my personal Instagram account. And then I was just like, well, guys, I'm like, the best we can do is just post on social media. Like this is what we're gonna have to do for right now. I don't know. Like I was at complete loss to be honest. And
Sure.
but I was just like, I can only do like the best that I can. And it definitely like it kicked off like pretty well. I'm like, we were getting just followers like left from right,
That's
like on
awesome.
Instagram. And people were just like, I think this is like so important to have. Like, a lot of our mental health is just not okay, like being in college. And I was just like, I understand that.
And then COVID.
And and then, yeah, COVID.
Right. Which
Man,
makes it, and everyone's mental health got worse. I mean, everyone, but you know what I mean? Like
yeah, yeah,
shitty timing.
exactly. And so I think having the support from like, Active Minds at the national and like just other mental health student leaders that are running chapters on their campus, like we all connected, like we're there for one another. And we're like, all right, we can do this event. And I think planning events was probably the toughest because, we had the social distance and,
Mm.
space were limited and, a lot of things were, we're trying doing online. And it it was tough. It was honestly tough. But I think what kept me going, with Active Minds was the people. I'm like, people really wanted, something like this on campus. And
Hmm.
people have tried before on like to bring something like this, like a mental health support group, but failed because no one was interested. And I think I was probably going to be that route too. I'm like, no one's going to be interested. No one wants this on campus. Who
Hmm.
cares about mental health? No one's going to take this seriously. And things started slowly like changing. And, with Active Minds, they partner with like a lot of organizations. And so I had, spoke on a webinar about mental health and depression with young adults about, with COVID too.
Hmm.
And then I ended up, being featured in a news article and things were
Damn.
just kind of going crazy at UD. Like they're like,
I mean, that's
Trey, like,
wild for
that's a,
UD. For
yeah.
people for people at home that don't know, like this is University of Dubuque in Iowa, like
Right.
bumfuck nowhere. I mean, it's the truth. Like I went to school
Yeah.
like also in Dubuque, and I mean, for that to have
No one
any
knows about Dubuque.
attention, no, no. Yes, it's in the US, and yeah.
Yeah. And I just like I was, super grateful for like, all the opportunities that Active Minds like gave me to,
Hmm.
have a voice and like, kind of advocate for other college students who are scared to speak up about their mental health. And I kid you not, like I've had so many people reach out to like our Instagram page, but then also to me personal, and then also
Hmm.
like members in the group, about how we impacted them to speak up about, their mental health and how they're seeing therapists now, or,
It's awesome.
how they're not afraid to, be living with depression or anxiety or,
Hmm.
whatever else. And I was just like, all right, y'all, like we're getting somewhere.
Hmm.
And that's when I was like, all right. I think my biggest challenge though was like wanting to talk about like everything in a short amount of time.
Hmm.
And so things weren't kind of like being planned out like fully. but I think it was just me like thinking of something. It's like, all right, we're gonna run with that. We're gonna go.
Sure.
And I don't know, dude. Like it was definitely challenging for me to speak up about my mental health, like my freshman year and sophomore year.
Mm-hmm.
That I'm like, okay, there's a lot more people out there that are scared too. So it's like, how can we change that? Like, what can I do to at least shine a light in some people to speak up about their mental health? And I honestly didn't think I would get the amount of, members to be a part of my org as
Mm-hmm.
as much as I did. And I'm truly grateful for, all of them. Like I had people come from many different majors, and like I'm talking like nursing program, like sports marketing, criminal justice. I guess it's still related to kind of this mental health work and stuff.
But it's
But
it's everybody. There's mental health does not,
yeah,
like, it affects everybody in,
yeah.
every walk of life.
Mm. And they just came along and they're like, all right, Trey, we're here for you. Like we're following along with you. And that meant so much to me because I'm like, I didn't have the support,
Mhm.
growing up. I didn't have the support, 2 years ago. And for y'all to be on this journey with me and want to spread mental health like on campus, it it means a shit ton, dude.
Hell
Like
yeah.
I was really blessed. Like I'm still thankful for all of them to this day and like
Mm-hmm.
what they're doing now. And because most organizations, like once they start up, the people that started them and they go off and graduate, they don't give two shits about what they started or what they did. It's
Nope.
like you put in all that work for you to just leave it,
Build a resume.
like, yeah.
It's more
Yeah,
about building that
that is
resume.
true.
I mean,
That is true.
let's be honest. Some people in college, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
They just want to put that shit on their resume, keep it moving.
Mm.
Man. So what did you guys, okay, so like I get that, like, build a community and all that. So like what, like a meeting, like what were you guys providing to people? Or like
Yeah.
what could Active Minds provide to people in college? Because I'm thinking, I mean, for me personally, so I went to Clark, which was honestly down the street. I went there for 2 years,
Right.
and that's kind of where I started realizing my mental health was like a thing and what it
Mhm.
was and what we didn't have. I mean, if we did have any resources, I had no idea.
Yeah.
It wasn't out there.
Mhm.
So like just thinking about this is just, I mean, when you move up, when you go to college, that's when you really become yourself and you learn more about yourself and you have time to
Yeah.
reflect and no one's telling you what to do. And you know what I mean? Like, and you can actually be
Yeah.
yourself. And if you
Mhm.
had some mental health issues, they're probably going to start realizing like what they may be. And
Mhm.
just having a group like that's incredible. It's like, well, what,
Yeah.
I mean, if I was, at UD, like what would you guys do for me? Obviously you
Yeah.
guys aren't therapists. You're not doctors in it.
Mm.
You know,
Yeah. No, and that's also like I, have to tell people, sometimes like I'm not a mental health professional
mhm.
yet.
Right. Yes.
Yeah.
Right.
But and I also told, my members too, I'm like, hey, listen, like we at the end of the day, like we're humans, like yeah, like we're here for people, we're supporting people and we want people to speak up about their mental health, but we also need to, remind people that we're not professionals. But what we are is friends, we're students, we see them like we might not like understand like what they're going through, but we get
Hmm.
them. And so we were more a safe space for students to come and talk and be themselves and talk about what they're going through and what they dealt with. And we're you know low mental health advocates out here
Oh yeah.
and providing giving people resources for things that that are in Dubuque community or like
Hmm.
on our campus. There was like a couple people who were like didn't even never even heard of the counseling center. And so we were voices for that, like, hey, this is our counseling center, it's located right here, here are the hours, here's information about the therapist and psychologist there. We can walk you over there, we can be by
Hmm.
your side, going to sign up for services. And that's something I tried doing like a lot, was like being by their side, walking them over there. Or even like my members too, like I know a couple of them told me like, hey, like I'm heading this place, like do you want to come with, do you want to join? If not, like that's okay, but I'm walking
Hmm.
this person over here to be by their side to sign up for for services. And so we were more building a community for people to just feel safe.
Absolutely. A support system that
Yeah.
people don't have, like you
Don't.
said, whether it's like your parents don't understand or things like that. And it's
Yeah.
building that support.
And, we were really big on validating, validating and appreciating them for sharing, stuff that they went through, and let them know that, like, they're not alone, because some people, like, I thought I was the only one dealing with the shit that I was dealing with.
Oh yeah.
Like, I didn't know. I thought everyone just lived like this happy, freaking perfect life, but we're all dealing with this.
Exactly.
And I think just being vulnerable on, like, our social media pages, everyone's like, okay, this is normal. This, like, mental health is starting to be normalized, like, here on campus. Like, some people, like, still, like I said, they don't know what mental health is, but they're finding
Right.
out from, Active Minds being on our campus.
Mm-hmm.
And then with the suicide, on our campus were kind of big. Like, not many people knew about it. And I would, hear from people like, hey, this happened over the weekend. Like, this person tried taking his life away or her life away. And I'm just like, okay, like, what, like, we're like, who's protecting, like, who's by them, like, who's getting these reports, like, what are they doing? And it's just like nothing was really being done. And I think, with Active Minds, it had, just different, like, programs and, like, initiatives you can bring to, like, your college campus. And I was like, you know what? Why don't we get the suicide hotline printed on the back of all student ID cards? I was like, this is an easy access for people to use. Like,
Hell yeah.
we use our ID cards to get in buildings, to pay for our meals, and to go work out and stuff like that. It's like, this number is going to save a life.
Mm-hmm.
And that's when me and, my board was like, all right, well, who do we need to go talk to? How can this happen? When can this happen? And all it took was a simple email, and they were just like, let's resize it.
Wow.
We can put it on there, and it'll be available for students in the fall of 2021.
No shit. No
And we're
push.
just
No
like,
pushback.
no pushback, nothing.
Wow.
And we're like, all right,
Wow.
that's cool.
I'm surprised. I'm honestly surprised. It sucks
Yeah.
to say it, but
Yeah, because honestly,
wow.
you definitely, I felt like I thought we were going to get a pushback.
Right.
I
I would
literally
think
did.
so.
Yeah. But
Wow.
I mean, they're just like, all right, we can do it. It takes 2 seconds to throw this on there. And there you have it.
Incredible.
And I was just like, you guys have no idea how much this means to me.
Yeah.
And I mean, it probably could have saved a life this semester. Like,
Absolutely, man.
but I think the biggest, thing that, makes me happy still until this day is, I guess, just seeing the new people be a part of Active Minds now.
Mm-hmm.
Just seeing, still what they're doing and that they're still living my vision. I don't know, like, I'm lost for words.
It's a beautiful thing, man. I mean, like, before, I mean, we kind of met over the internet, right? But
Yeah.
even with Alyssa, I coached her brother, and that, like, this little connection, right? And, like, just even every single person I interact with there, the passion, everything, just like everyone there is all supportive on everybody. It's an incredible thing. And like you said, like, it's pretty big for such a small school. You know what I mean? Like, and I'm sure there's a lot of people that are enjoying it in silence still, but even the exposure, like you said, like, you still got those people who are not gonna, it takes a lot for them to get help, right? But even just seeing it, I'm sure it gives them a little bit of hope, and just, like, looking into it a little bit more. It like you said, exposure, it's validating. It's those symptoms we talk about. Is there's some wild shit that happens in mental illness. And if you were to go tell someone that, if you don't have validation from that group of people, I mean, you can go stir crazy, trying to figure out what's wrong with you. And man, I wish I had something like that in school, instead of just turning to booze and, you know what I mean? Just getting fucked up instead, it's, for anyone, I mean, do you have any advice for anyone in college that might be struggling? Just anything that you think you could help people?
I think,
or young adults, let's say.
Yeah.
No, I want to go to college.
God, man, college. That's
right.
something.
I don't use my degree, but
I would say my advice would be just to find some good people, find some friends that, that kind of give you that space to open up and to, be vulnerable, as we said numerous of times. And, I would honestly just like stay away from the friends that are like, I have ABC like going on, or like, I'm just going to get over it. Like, it's nothing that serious, or I'm just going to go drink. That's just what that's my way of coping. I mean, like, you can be there and like, support them and help them, but like,
oh, for sure.
Surround yourself with friends that are like, going to push you to grow mentally. Like, we all have these friends that, that push us to, go work out and, for our physical health, but like, we're the friends that are going to push you for your mental health. Who's going to, take that extra step for you, to grow mentally. And I think that was kind of like my biggest struggle, was finding those people, but they're out there.
Yeah.
And, I would also just say, like, you're not the only one that's going through, something on a college campus, or like, just in your young adult life. There's so many people out there who are, battling, these same things or similar things that, you're going through. And I feel like, as we were in high school, we were taught like, we basically, like, we have to have our shit together. Like, we're graduating high school. We're adults now. Like, we got to go figure life out on our own, or like, you got to have your shit together. Like, I cannot tell you the amount of times that like I've heard that, my senior year of high school, like, you need to have your shit together.
And how's that even possible? You know what I mean? You've been living at home, you haven't had a chance to grow at all. I mean, times have changed, dude. Yeah, it's I mean, I'm 31 and like 18, fuck, man, it was you couldn't tell me anything. It didn't matter. It's stupid, but it's the truth.
Yeah, right. And I guess another thing, like, don't be afraid to seek help. Like, so many people are doing it today, and it's honestly because of the pandemic. Like, that's when mental health started to, become normalized. And like, I definitely have seen changes, in society about the importance of mental health. And I think it's, again, like, it's because of the pandemic, because of COVID. And that was a blessing.
I was going to say the same thing, like, blessing in disguise, right? I mean,
yeah,
it made even the most, not anti-mental health, but you know what I mean? People that just don't believe in it. It's like, well, when they start experiencing it, because they're locked in their house for fucking 18 months, it like you said, exposed a lot of people to mental illness, and even as mental illness, but, just increased anxiety, maybe some depression. You don't have to have that's another thing. You don't have to have a mental illness to experience these things. Everyone experiences anxiety. It's a natural part of who we are.
All right.
Depression can happen, especially situationally with COVID. It's like you said, it was a blessing. It's caused a lot of change. It caused a lot of harm too, but I mean, a lot of change.
Yeah, I think it definitely, like, it also was a big key thing, and my mental health, just advocating. I think just being home, like, just being basically locked inside, that's when I started to, kind of post about mental health and a bunch of just mental health content, and just all that good stuff. It was because of COVID, honestly. Like, I don't think that if it wasn't for that, like, I mean, I probably would have eventually like started something, but like, that's when I really started to, like, advocate. And yeah,
I'm glad you did, honestly. The more it's being a man too, for us. I know a lot of your content is about, like, being a man with mental health issues, and there's a reason why a lot of my guests have been women, because they're out there, they're talking about it. And like you said, we talked about earlier, it's supposed to be strong, you're not supposed to have our feelings. And I've always been an emotional person, but it was like oh, you little bitch. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
it's like,
Yeah.
what's the correlation here? Because I have feelings and you don't, or
Yeah.
whatever, you know, but it's
Yeah.
the truth. And the more in just advocating and talking about it,
Yeah.
as soon as you can stop having to wear the mask every day, you know, I think life becomes a lot easier, even if
Oh
if
yeah.
you're struggling with depression, anxiety. But like everyone I know probably knows about it. One, I'm on the internet, but
Mhm.
like, uh, you know, if someone's going out with me, I'll be, oh, I'm anxious today or whatever. And like, wait,
Mhm.
what? It's like, yeah, anxiety, whatever. And then you know
Yeah.
what? The next day when they talk about their anxiety, because everyone deals with it, man. And
Right.
if you can help someone else by just telling your story, or just, you don't have to go into detail, you know, just,
Mhm.
hey, I deal with anxiety. It's all good.
Right. Yeah.
Um, you know, before we kind of start wrapping things up, you know, anxious ambition, you know, for me, it's showing people that they can do more despite everything, you know, despite everything you've gone through. You know, what are your goals right now? And yeah, and then how are you, you know, pursuing them?
Yeah. So my goals right now is, I mean, obviously finishing grad school.
Sure. Right. Fair enough. Fair enough.
Finishing grad school and, becoming a mental health therapist. Like I am starting to find, my purpose even more, since I've started grad school and, finding the voice that I have. I just want to, continue, the things that I'm doing and, just, just be a light in others. And so honestly, like my number one goal is to help people find themselves.
It's
Like
incredible.
that's where I'm at. And I, just heard back from a friend like the other day and how, they had their breakthrough. They're like, all right, shit, I gotta start working on myself.
Mm-hmm.
And they've been doing these things to, take care of themselves and, like setting boundaries and practicing self-care. And, like I don't know, like it makes me happy that my friends are like starting to take action and their mental health to
Absolutely.
better themselves. And so again, my goal is to help people find themselves.
That's incredible, man. Honestly, I mean, and a selfless goal like that, I mean, uh, it's incredible. I mean, like, I don't want to say it's gonna be easier to achieve, but you know what I mean. There's rewards from true human beings that are seeing, you know, like you said. I mean, you can lead like, the whole thing. You can lead a horse to water, right? You
Mhm.
keep telling your friends, but when they actually have that breakthrough, or maybe they hit rock bottom or something,
Mm.
you know, you being able to be there for them, it feels good.
Yeah.
It's not wrong to feel good about help, you know, like, you know what I'm saying? Like, it's okay
Yeah.
to feel good that you helped someone else, you know, for
Yeah.
self. And it's not selfish, but it goes both ways, man. We're human
Yeah.
beings.
Right.
We need each other. Like we talked about earlier. I mean, if you're alone dealing with those suicidal thoughts and things like that, I mean, it could be dark. And if you don't have something or someone to help pull you out, it could be a fucking struggle.
Yeah. Absolutely. Like I cannot express like how important it is to have people in your corner.
Mm-hmm.
Like, and for me, like I used to, not trust people because like people would come into my life and then they would leave. And someone told me they were just like, there's gonna people that come in, there's gonna people that go, but you also have to, learn to allow people to come into your life because not everyone is out to get you.
Mm-hmm.
And I was just like, damn. All right, actually, my therapist told me that.
There you
She's like,
go.
not everyone's like out to get you.
Right.
And I was just like, shit, okay. And
You're
so
right.
like I started to, yeah, so I
You're right.
started to like, you know, let people come in and people came in and people are still here. And like the amount of times like I pushed them away, like I gotta be honest, like I pushed people away. But they stuck by my side and they, they're here. So that's some good advice
Sure.
right there.
I love that. No, I love it. And one thing to hit on too, so I know we kept talking about like finding people, like family, friends, whatever. I'm sure someone out there doesn't have any of that. You know, they got nothing,
Yeah.
right? But
Yeah.
the great thing about today is that you have the internet. You know,
Yeah.
anxious ambition, Trey speaks. You know, I we're building. Like, it's not about us. It's about the community. you know, and there's still people that just like randomly will send me messages and be like, hey, that was really helpful today. Or they'll talk about their struggles. And it's just like, you can vent to me. And again, it's like, hey, I'm not a professional. If it kind of crosses the line a little bit where it's like, I really can't help you anymore. Like, it's being a resource. So if you are really struggling and you don't have anybody, you got the internet, please like reach out to me, reach out to Trey. Like, we'll help you as much as we can and try to give you guidance, man. Like, don't, even if you feel truly alone, you're just not, you're not, there's people out there that'll listen to you and care about you. I mean, there's like this girl from like Brazil and is like speaking broken English and shit, like saying how much she appreciates it. It's like, that person's reaching out to me because maybe they don't have anybody, you know? So there are resources out there. So like, I don't want people to feel like discouraged. They don't have many friends or things like that, or there's resources out there.
Yeah, absolutely. And I don't think that like, well, I truly believe in building friendships over the internet. Like,
sure.
For example, like me and you, like
exactly,
we
man.
have not met in person.
Nope.
Didn't know who you were. Like, I just remember, Alyssa talking about you. And, we wanted to get you, I think that spring of, my senior year, but whatever.
COVID.
And I mean, shit, look at us now.
Absolutely, man. Absolutely. The bond.
Yeah, seriously.
And true, like that bond, like we have that friendship already because we've gone through some of the same shit. Yeah. Even though, not, but the same, and like everyone that's following me and following you, every one of those people you could probably reach out to and have a connection with.
Absolutely.
So that's, I try to talk about that. It's all about the community,
Yeah.
Last couple questions before we wrap it up.
Yeah.
I mean, well, let's go back, right? So your freshman year, that night, you're suicidal. You can go back, talk to yourself, give yourself a piece of advice, talk to you, what would you do if you can go back?
Yeah. So if I was to go back and, talk to, Trey, then I would definitely tell him the same things that, I still tell my inner childhood self, like, hey, like, you are safe now. Like, you are okay. There are people right there in your corner. You're not alone. And, help is right there. And, when I look back at that time, I really didn't want to die. I didn't. Like, I just wanted all the pain and the hurt and the suffering to just stop. And I think that's, when I, kind of realized, people are there for me. And so again, just kind of going back and just telling that Trey, like, listen, bro, like, you're good.
Yeah.
Like, look at us now. Like, I got you. And that's honestly probably has like been helping me, start to be okay and like, manage, the shit that I went through, growing up and, during that moment, you're saying like, hey, bro, I got you now. Like, we're good. Like, let's go. You got the coping skills, like you got it all now. Like, well, not all of it, but you're handling it better now. Like, we're gonna get there. And so, yeah.
That's awesome. I'm sure it would have been helpful, man. It's absolutely. Where can people find you at? If people are trying to connect with you, where can they find you?
Yeah, so you can find me on Instagram at Trey_speaks. That is TRE and then _speaks. And also on Twitter at TreyMoss3. Always post some mental health content. So is Justin. And, just spreading a light and, being there for others, impacting others and, helping them overcome their mental health battles.
Oh yeah. You post a lot. I give you credit, man.
Yeah. Okay. I sometimes
no, you post
like,
a lot. Well, here's the thing. I'll say this, and I think it's by myself too. I think I'm sure you put a lot of pressure on yourself. Like, hey, I haven't posted in a while, this and that.
Yeah.
But how many times have you hopped on Instagram and been like, damn, this person, like, you're looking for people's posts. Like, you're not. You're just not. But when you do post, it's impactful. And that's why, and that's better than the bullshit that some people post every day. It's impactful stuff. And that's what, I know those infographics can be a pain in the ass to make. So
oh my God.
I give you credit, dude.
Dude, it's okay. I don't like I don't know if you use Canva.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. I love it, but sometimes I'm like, fuck. I'm like, damn,
Yep.
this stuff is stressing me out. And like
Yep.
sometimes I'm like, damn, can someone like help me? Like I want someone to help me. But then I knew I think where I'm getting at now is like planning things like, for the months. So like,
Mm-hmm.
say right now, like I'm doing, November, Men's Mental Health Month.
Sure.
So I was like planning that like all October, like, and I like, so I made like these posts like a month before,
Mm-hmm.
you know, and so now like all I have to do is post it, which like took off a lot of stress because I'm like, I will like wake up like one day and I'm just like, all right, I want to post this. So then I go make this picture,
Mm-hmm.
like, and then I'm on that. So like, I think what I did now to kind of like organize, like all my mental health content stuff is like I have a journal now or like a notebook. And so it's like, I'm going to make this post. I write out like what I want the post to say. And then I
Mm-hmm.
go and, kind of design them or whatever.
Sure.
But yeah, a lot of people say like, Trey, like you post a lot. And
Hey,
I'm like, I don't know.
but that just goes to show like you really like when I see people post a lot, I get a little stressed. I'm like, damn, how are they doing this? But you really think like what you see behind the scenes though, like you especially having, some mental health issues, you have to if you want to be successful, again, anxious ambition is all about. If you want to be successful, there's things that we got to do differently. Planning ahead,
Yeah.
planning for those days where you wake up and you don't want to do shit, but maybe you got something prepared, or you take a break because that's okay too.
Yeah.
Like don't just assume Trey's waking up every day writing these posts. It's just is what it is. We're human too, but we put it out there to help you guys. So,
Yeah.
all right, last question.
Yep.
You ready?
I'm ready.
All right.
I
How do you
think
want to
so.
be? How do you want to be remembered, Trey?
Cool. Maybe I wasn't ready.
No,
No,
you weren't ready for that.
I went. I was not ready.
It's all
Let's
good.
see.
Speak from the heart.
I would like to be remembered by, that dude Trey Moss showing up for people, but also for himself to provide for others. I'm just going to drop the mic
That's
right there.
perfect. Damn, it's perfect. That's perfect. Hey, first of all, thank you so much for being on today. I'm so excited to kick off season 2 with this.
Yep.
We need to get some more men on here expressing, talking about their feelings, talking about mental health, because we all experience it. Thank you for sharing all, some hard stuff to talk about, and we appreciate it. I'm sure someone out there listening is absolutely going to relate, whether it's, specifically to it or not. Another thing I want to touch on is, if you're in college right now and you're considering, like, you're in a leadership, you want to be a leader, like Trey, looking into starting Active Minds.
Yeah.
It's, I'm sure it's not, I'm sure that there's a system set up to start it.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Be the difference. Do you like how was the process? Was it I want to say easy, but becoming a chapter, you probably need a couple sponsors and things like that. Like,
yeah, so I'm pretty sure it's like this on every campus where you need like maybe 1 or 2 faculty advisors to kind of, sign off and, that they're going to be there for support with, your organization. But Active Minds has tons of, resources, and the people there are going to help you start your chapter on campus. Like without it, like I didn't feel alone like whatsoever because, their support, like it was all there.
mm-hmm.
And like you're gonna join this network where there's tons of mental health or student leaders that has an Active Minds chapter. And you guys are all gonna just bounce off each other, bounce ideas off, and planning and programs and all that other stuff. So like, to start it, you won't be alone. And I mean, it may seem like that, like like during the process, but like you're not. Like you have tons of people to kind of call on. So if you are interested in starting an Active Minds chapter, please feel free to reach out, and I would guide you into, the people to, contact and what you can do and stuff like that. And also, talk to the current Active Minds president at, UD, University of Dubuque.
Mm-hmm.
She would definitely help you out as well. Alyssa is an amazing woman, and I cannot thank that girl enough for, the amount of work that she has been doing, and also the team too. But for them to, just kind of continue Active Minds, it's been a blessing.
It's incredible, man. Thanks again for thank you for being on the show, man. It's been awesome. If anyone out there is struggling, remember, you can always reach out to us. We'll do all we can to help you. I'm not a professional. Trey's almost there.
Almost there.
But we'll help guide you and do all we can, because you're never alone. Thanks again. Thank you for tuning in to another episode of the Anxious Ambition podcast. You can find us on all podcast platforms. Follow us on Instagram at Anxious Ambition. You can actually watch this podcast over on YouTube. Lastly, check out our website, anxiousambition.com, where we have all of our merch, and a portion of every sale is donated to NAMI, and it helps support the individuals and their families who are suffering from mental illness. Thanks again for listening, and until next time, take it easy.
Anxious ambition.